You're telling me that Auburn football has better than a 1-5 shot at the playoff? What?
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zac Blackerby, and thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. Charlie 5 hanging out with us today. Jackson Arnold, is he Hugh Freeze's most important recruit? Also, does the success for Butch Thompson and Bruce Pearl put more pressure on Hugh Freeze? But first things first, ESPN put out their top FPI national championship odds with this football power index thing. Yeah. Which it always seems like they like Auburn in this preseason FPI. I mean, even like going into Harson's worst year, I think they had us as like a top 20 team, if I remember correctly. So Auburn's always benefited from this FPI algorithm. So take that for what it's worth. But they've got projected wins for the Tigers at 7.5, which is what the line is on FanDuel.
Yeah.
But Kyle, the more alarming thing is they have attached playoff percentages for all of the schools. So like Texas leads the way with 83.9%. Like that checks out. Georgia's right behind them, 78.6. Ohio State, 70.6. Alabama, 66.2. Whatever. But you get to Auburn at 14. 21.8% chance to make the college football playoff. That's better than a 1-5 shot to make the playoff. I don't know if I buy it, but sign me up. I'll take it.
So I tried to do the math. I try to think about this from a gambling standpoint. So I've seen the line at 7.5. I've seen the line at 8. I've seen the line go up to 8 in certain places. So like that means they think there's a 50-50 shot Auburn wins 8 games. Okay. In the playoff last year, 9-3 got in. So that's just one more game. I think they're saying they think there's a 20% chance Auburn wins more than 8 games and is in the conversation, if the cards fall right, that they could be in the playoffs. So, I mean, if you work it that way, I think maybe it makes some sense. If you look at it that way, if you look at it just strictly from, I guess a gambling perspective, I think it maybe makes a little bit of sense.
Yeah, and we've talked about Auburn's schedule. Like, is there a 20% chance that you beat Oklahoma and Texas A&M on the road? Maybe. And Missouri, like I think, that run where we're at home or, we're at Arkansas or at Vandy, like all those are manageable. Like, okay, that's fine. And then like something happens to Georgia or Bama and they slip up. Like, okay, that's a 20% chance of that happening. Maybe. It still seems a little high. I'm not going to lie to you. It still seems a little high, but
yeah,
I can see where they're coming from.
Well, the thing about FPI, I mean, I could be completely off on this, but don't they just basically, it's based off your roster? Isn't it mostly based off of your roster and things like that? I mean, I think they think that Auburn's going to have a pretty good roster. It doesn't necessarily always predict outcomes well and coaching of that roster.
So this is the article. The ESPN. The FBI is a predictive rating system that estimates each FBS team's strength and points per game relative to the national average on offense, defense, and special teams, making adjustments for starters lost, recruiting talent, and other personnel changes. Those numbers are then plugged into the schedule, and everything is simulated 20,000 times.
20,000.
Why 20,000?
I know.
Why we stop it at 20,000?
Do 1 million.
Yeah, if it's
all we're going for precision,
on a computer, like why stop at 20,000? To try to use the odds of winning its conference, making the playoff, and advancing to a national title. It's as arbitrary as it sounds, right?
I'm looking at this thing though, and I'm wondering if this is that big of an achievement because I filtered by playoffs, and Auburn is just behind the Tulane Green Wave, the Boise State Broncos, and the Kansas State Wildcats. And one spot ahead of the UNLV Rebels. So,
but their path to the playoff is different. Like if you're UNLV or Tulane, all you have to do is beat UNLV or Tulane.
It's a good
right?
point.
Or like be better than them.
And then Kansas State, what is the Big 12 now that all the good teams are gone?
Well, then that's just your percentage chance of winning the Big 12. I mean, right now in the system, they're a one bid league, probably. So, like, is Kansas State's odds of winning the Big 12 1-4? Like, maybe that doesn't seem crazy.
So Zach, let me ask you this: if you seem to be like there's no way, but we're talking about 8 or 9. We're talking about 8 or 9 wins. Well, 9 wins puts you in the conversation. Do you just feel like there's just no chance Auburn gets to 9 games? Like there's just the odds are, it's more likely they don't than they do. Or I guess that's.
Let me. Yeah. Okay. Is there a chance Auburn wins 9 games this year? Yes. Yes, there is. And I'd put those odds at about 20%. I don't think that's crazy. Every time we say, and I've said it too, I think I've stopped saying it over the last month or so because I started asking myself this question. Are we sure? Wow, people aren't going to like this. Are we sure that 9 wins legitimately gets us in the conversation? Are we sure about that?
It depends on the timing. I think absolutely. Let me play that scenario out.
Let's do it. Yes.
Let's play that scenario out. Okay. You split one of Texas A&M and Oklahoma on the road. You split that game. You win one of those. Okay. You lose to Georgia. Let's say you lose to Georgia. That's 2 losses. Okay. And then you're undefeated going into the Iron Bowl. You're playing that game probably for play. There's playoff implications on that game. So you're in the conversation
going into the Iron Bowl. That is 100% a playoff game. Yes,
I think so.
Yeah, if you're 9-2 going into the Iron Bowl, and Alabama's probably in a similar situation, maybe they're 10-1. Yeah, that's 100% a playoff game.
So that's where I'm going with this. Where I think 9-3 is in the playoff conversation.
But if you lose that game, I don't think you're in. And
those scenario. Would be those you wouldn't have enough good wins. Now, if you were to knock off Georgia at home and you lose another one somewhere,
what's tricky to me is like, sure, it's a weaker schedule, and so we're able to have these conversations. And I don't think it sounds crazy. The other side of it, though, is if you do fall short, you can't point to anything like we've typically been able to do.
You can have a strong
scenario. Yeah. There's a real shot that we go 9-3. And we don't have a win against a top 20 team.
There's not a 2017 scenario where you can kind of backdoor your way.
Correct.
Because I think in 2017 you lost to Clemson and LSU, I think, but which I guess that's not 2 conference games, but you still had 2 losses, but you had 2 humongous wins. I don't think you can have that. I don't think that's available.
Yeah, and in that scenario, feelings didn't matter as much either because you won the SEC West at that point.
Yeah.
I mean, the CFP committee loved you. They shocked a lot of people when they put Auburn at number 2, but it ultimately didn't matter because, if you would have beaten Georgia in the SEC championship, it wouldn't have mattered anyway. So, little different. But yeah, if you in that scenario, which I think is the most likely scenario, if you go 9-3. Is you lose either Baylor or Texas A&M or Oklahoma. You lose one of those road games. You lose to Georgia. You lose to Bama. I just don't think that resonates there. And it depends on what else happens in the SEC. Like, do we all beat each other up? What happens in the Big Ten? Are they going to put as many teams in as this year as they do last year? It's early in the system. We don't know what's normal. But I'm just not. And then it's like, okay, if you beat Georgia or Bama, but you lose to Vandy again, or you slip up on the road to Arkansas, or maybe Missouri's better than you thought. I think those losses hurt you enough where it's probably technically correct during the conversation, but I think we throw that around a little too much.
What do you mean by that?
Or if you go 9-3, you're in the conversation for the playoff. I think we're throwing that around a little too much.
Okay, I see what you're saying. You're talking about at the end of the year. I want to just be in the conversation. I want to be in the conversation in November. Like, I want to be playing for the freaking playoff in November and not counting down for basketball season mid-September. That's where I think Auburn takes the next step. And if you can,
you're not saying after the SEC or all the championship games are played, it's like, oh, could we be a top 12? That's not what you're saying.
When I say in the conversation, I'm talking about, hey, we're coming down to the wire and there's something to play for. To me, that's how I want Auburn football to be, like year in and year out.
Yeah. All right. So 20. I like how you explain that to me. I totally get that. 21.8% to make the playoff. You buying it? Yes or no? Yes or
I'm
no?
going to say from the math, if you look at it from the betting perspective, I'm going to say the percentage makes sense.
All right. I think it's a little high. I get it. I think it's a little high, but that's fun.
Sure.
I'll take it. I'll take a 1 in 5 shot, 100%. And a 1.1% chance to win the championship, the whole dang thing.
So you're telling me there's a chance.
There's a chance. That's right. That's right.
Is
there somehow even more pressure on Hugh Freeze now? I kind of think so. That's next, right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. In case you haven't heard, Auburn's hosting its first ever Super Regional in program history this weekend. And if you want to get in on the action, hopefully you're going to Plainsman Park. But hey, Auburn minus 188 to win Friday's game against the Coastal Carolinas Chanticleers, or you can bet on them at FanDuel just to win the entire Super Regional and go to Omaha. Auburn favored at minus 160, which you take those odds, and also Auburn at plus 1,200 to win the College World Series, all at FanDuel.
That's a solid investment
right now with that, Kyle Rush.
Solid investment, especially with all these big-time teams losing, getting knocked out. I think the pathway's there, man.
Yeah, the second highest ranked team now? It's Arkansas is the 3 and Auburn at the 4. I think I've got that right. So very fun stuff. Hey, if you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA and the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. Man, there's success all over the place at Auburn, except for on the field when it comes to football. And you look at the other, the larger sports at Auburn. Basketball goes to a Final Four, has a guy that was second when it comes to Player of the Year honors. You look at what Auburn baseball has been able to do, surprising everyone. Man, people hated that Auburn baseball is good. There were a lot of people tweeting through it over the weekend, and I love seeing every second of it. Headlining Ike Irish, who might be, he belongs in the conversation among the greats in Auburn baseball history, and that's before, this run is happening. Hopefully we have even more to add to Ike Irish's resume at Auburn. But to me, I think there was already so much pressure on Hugh Freeze, but as an Auburn fan, just looking at what Auburn can offer all of these coaches, it's time. It's time to win. It's time to win. You have everything you need. Bruce Pearl was given time. Butch Thompson was given time. Hugh Freeze, I think, will continue to be given time. But the pressure, it's now. It's time for you to win, Hugh Freeze.
Yeah, 1,000%. I don't think and when he says I don't feel pressure, I don't believe him. So obviously, it doesn't help to see Auburn basketball, a historic cellar dweller, basically, competing for national titles or competing for, having Final Four appearances. Now Auburn baseball, you got a chance to make another College World Series. Butch's fourth regional win, I think, since he's been here, which is just incredible. I had a conversation with our buddy Ben Taylor, and we talked about the 80s and how from 85 to 89 was maybe one of the greatest stretches of the Big Three as far as sporting success goes. And Auburn's done that so far the last several years in 2 out of the 3. You just can't. If you could get football to hit, you maybe have a conversation to have another Big Three. Have another Big Three conversation. There has to be at least a feeling of dadgummit, man. They're doing it. I got to do it too. I just don't see how there's not. I don't see how it doesn't make it harder. Doesn't make it seem like it has a lot more riding on it this year for sure. You mentioned all the resources. There's not much you can complain. Not much you can complain about.
How much support was there?
Not the same.
Pearl? These guys have built their programs. Bruce Pearl had nothing. They had no sort of, there was, natural, revamped excitement and support when he was hired. Sure. But it took him a while to get it going, but he did. He built all of this. And then Butch Thompson, they were winning fairly early, and it took the fan base a while to support Auburn baseball, in my opinion. I think some of that had to do with earlier in that, and Butch Thompson's run at Auburn, like softball was kind of the focal point that time of the year when the Myers era, what was going on, and they were going to, the Women's World Series and all of that. But with, them trying to have to be creative with the whole Operation Atmosphere thing that they did in the outfield. And then, now they've pumped the money in the Plainsman Park. It's incredible. Oh my goodness. It's an incredible venue. And I can't wait to see how electric it's going to be this weekend. But those guys have had to build every ounce that they've had. Hugh Freeze came into this okay, you're going to have one of the most passionate fan bases day one. You just need to win. And now he's doing everything he can to lay the foundation for hopefully, some consecutive winning seasons in the future. But still, once again, it's about pressure. This conversation is about pressure. And I don't love that Hugh Freeze is saying he doesn't feel pressure because it's
well, he does.
He has to.
I mean, what do you say? Dang, I can't sleep at night.
I don't know. I don't know if he answers stuff too honest, everything else.
I think some of that's political. There's no way you can not feel pressure. I know it's aggravating sometimes, some of the answers, but there's no way.
But it is a bad look, though, in my opinion. And you and I are both pro Hugh Freeze 99% of the time. But for him to say there's no pressure, and then to come out and say yeah, we got to win a bowl game. It's I don't know. It's let's think through what we're saying just a little bit here. Let's just think a little bit about this.
And I was asked about those comments on the next round. And I think honestly, I think it was in the heat of the moment, a bad answer. And I think he fixed it a couple of interviews later. I can't remember exactly who it was when he said, look, I'm not going to put numbers on it. And you and I talked about that. I'm not going to put numbers on it, but here's the deal. We got to get better in the critical spots. Because that was the difference in several games. So I know it's June and there's things you have to latch onto to talk about. But he could be
part of it though. It's June. You're coming off of a Final Four appearance. Auburn baseball is one of the hottest teams in the country, but it's still football is still king. It always will be.
It always will.
Always will be.
And you got to win. There's the pressure has to be at a fever pitch right now. Take those sports out. It definitely ramp it up. But just in general, I'm thinking from the standpoint of all these people that have poured thousands and thousands of dollars into rebuilding this thing. And it's fun to be able to say that out loud now. But at some point in time, man, you got to start seeing return on your investment. And there is no doubt. I think that's running through his mind. That's got to be. You can't talk about that, but that's got to be running through his mind.
Yeah, and you can only sell vision for so long. And it's if you don't win, are you vulnerable to people poaching your roster? And the answer to that is yes. I think so. I still think they'll be in a better situation than most teams that'll have the win-loss record that Auburn would have in this scenario. But I can't imagine you wouldn't lose some key guys in that situation. Yeah, these guys want to win. These guys want to win, and you're telling them that they can win here.
You're going to keep them. You know what you got to do to keep them.
Yeah,
you got to pay them more. So it's going to get to the point where if you're not producing on the field, that price tag goes up and up and up. The leverage you have goes further and further down, and you're going to have to probably let some guys go if you can't produce. So
this makes me sad. Let's just win.
I know you got to win. You got to win, and the schedule is there, the roster's there. There's
the support is there, the money's there. What are we doing? Go coach and win football games. Yeah, that's right. That's right. You made an interesting comment you did about Jackson Arnold.
Yeah,
I think I agree, but I want to talk through it with you. That's next, right here on Locked On Auburn. Earlier, all right, maybe it was earlier this week or late last week, you went on with Mike G, and you talked about Jackson Arnold being the most important recruit player acquired is probably the correct way to label it of the Hugh Freeze era.
Yeah.
And I get the argument, right? It's okay, he's missed the last 2 years on quarterback because you went with Peyton Thorne both times. First, you missed the first time. Second time, your theory was, okay, let's build everything around them. It wasn't enough, as it appears. So you go out and you get Jackson Arnold. I guess like my argument against that, and it's not a good one, is like we believe that there is a quarterback behind him now.
Yeah.
With Deuce. So if it doesn't work with Jackson, you've either got Deuce Knight or Ashton Daniels to, help that leash be shorter, I guess, which was different than what they had last year. But I think it's a compelling argument that Jackson Arnold is the most important recruit / addition of the Hugh Freeze era.
Let me ask you this. Let me walk this out for you.
Yeah.
Do you think there's at least a possibility that Auburn could win 9 games this year if Jackson Arnold is a little bit above average, like he's a solid quarterback that you can depend on, doesn't have to be world beater? Do you think there's a chance for 9 wins or, maybe even 10 if he's the guy you think he can be? Do you think there's a chance for that? Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think there's a chance for that if he's not?
Yes.
You think there's a chance to still win 9 or 10 games if you go to Deuce or Ashton Daniels?
Yes, assuming there's some caveats here. Assuming, Jackson's shortcomings do not result in a loss that we aren't anticipating.
Maybe, and I hope that that's the case. I think it's very rare that if the guy that wins the job sucks, that the guy behind him is going to make you better. I think I don't know that there is a case study to show
it's a
that
situation where, I mean, we've seen this at other like programs that have built elite rosters. Now, I don't know if Auburn's roster is to this point, but I think it's a dang good one. But I mean, we've seen this with Georgia. I mean, Kirby Smart couldn't get a quarterback decision right during his tenure there or for a hot minute, but the roster around them was so good where it's like, okay, once you found the guy who could manage, and just get the ball out, it was fine.
That's different. What we're talking about is the guy that wins the job, right? The guy that beats out all the other guys, wins the job, goes into the season, ends up being not good enough, and you have to bench him. Is there a case study that you can show me that a team got better when the guy that won the job? There's some scenarios where the dude gets injured.
Yeah,
and maybe a guy comes in.
I'm agreeing with you. I think that Jackson is the most important. Bama, when Jalen got benched,
that's about the only scenario that I can think of where a guy was struggling.
Didn't somebody get benched for Stetson at Georgia?
I don't remember.
I feel like that was a thing because I think his first start or whatever was against us. We're like, oh, we got a shot. Then he totally cooked us.
Maybe that's the case. I don't think it's very.
There's not a lot. But
there's not a lot.
I think that is though more likely to be a thing when the roster and supporting cast is better, which I do think is the case at Auburn.
I also do think the roster's better, and it is one of those things where if you can just find a guy to not screw it up, you might be able to.
That's a big part of this.
You might just be able to have. But I guess the overarching point is I think people are going to. I think probably you too, and a lot of people look at the track record of success with quarterbacks, and they've given Hugh a pass for the Peyton Thorne thing. Last minute addition when you first got him, you thought he was good, whatever. It didn't work out the way you wanted it to. You're like, you know what? This bidding war stuff is crazy. Maybe we can just build around Peyton, make him a little bit better. He did get a little bit better, but he still had a lot of the same issues. If you see a lot of the same issues going into Jackson Arnold's tenure, I think people are going to start asking some very similar, serious questions that says
100%
either, hey, we have an evaluation problem or we have a development problem. There is a 3-year now track record of success. Now, the caveat to that is if Deuce comes in or Ashton comes in and they set the world on fire, which I think the odds of that
numbers
are pretty slow.
Peyton Thorne's numbers post being benched aren't as bad as we make them out to be. And a lot of people attribute Hank's picks against Arkansas to Peyton, and that's obviously not what happened. I'm not defending Peyton Thorne because the fact of the matter is, and some people really disagree with this, but wins and losses are a quarterback stat. I don't care. Because your numbers could be okay, but you lose and nobody cares. or your numbers could be okay and you win and you're seen as a really good quarterback. I mean, that was kind of the thing that happened with Nico. I'm going to leave you. Is like his numbers were just, I kind of fell victim to this too, because I was kind of a Nico truther, but they won, but he was like, his numbers were like, whatever, so a lot of this comes down to if you can just take care of the football and win games.
And
Peyton couldn't win games here. Was it all his fault? No, it wasn't. But the fact of the matter is Peyton could not and did not win games here. So that's all it's going to come down to.
Can you make a big throw when you have to? Can you put together a big drive when you have to, even if you've sucked the whole game? That's being able to win is a very, very it's a skill set. It's a skill set, being able to sort of put things out of your mind and be able to just go out and make a play. And that's what I felt like, rightly or wrongly, we struggled with at times. Is there a time?
We've had good quarterbacks that didn't have that. It's like, I don't think Jarrett Stidham had that. I love Jarrett Stidham here at Auburn, but when the game was on the line, I don't know if I trusted him.
No, it had to be going. Things had to be going well,
right?
I think. And that to me was a lot about that. That was very. I think those two are very comparable. I think Thorne maybe is a little bit more athletic, but I think their games were probably pretty comparable.
I'd rather have Jarrett for sure.
Sure, if things were going well, they can light the world on fire. If you had a last-minute drive, do you have any confidence in Jarrett Stidham or Peyton Thorne leading you down the field for a win? He did do it against Texas A&M.
The last time I felt confident with an Auburn quarterback, I never really felt it with Bo, but I think it's Nick Marshall.
Yeah, that's it.
It's like, we got a minute and a half for down 4. Like, yeah, okay. I think
he did it. He did it multiple times. Like how many? Mississippi State. I mean, he did it so many times where he took you down the field and had a big drive. So
Iron Bowl, Georgia,
over and over again.
Some of it was craziness, but it's still, that's what they're great to do. Find ways to win.
Counts.
Find ways to win. It still
I
counts.
just think if you're Hugh, you got to have Jackson be successful. If you want to be able to sell anything to quarterbacks in the future, you got to have Jackson to be successful. And
success and this is probably another conversation. We could do a whole week's worth of shows on this. Like, well, what is success? And ultimately, I think we're all going to agree, like, the numbers are great. You got to win. You got to win. And I think it's set up where if Jackson's just decent, we'll win.
If you can protect the ball and just be decent, I'm with you. I think it could be.
Please. What a motto. Just be decent. Please, just be decent. Just throw it to Cam. Just throw it to Cam Coleman. Like, come on.
Like Bo used to do with Seth Williams, man. When in doubt, just throw it up.
Throw it up. It's better than a lot of the crap we did last year. Just throw it.
Yeah.
He's really big. He'll probably catch it.
The odds are in your favor.
Yeah, it's better than odds are better than a lot of stuff we did last year. So
sure.
Better than kicking a field goal last year, it felt like. How can people check out everything you've got going on?
Absolutely. Subscribe to thebarnauburn.com. Also subscribe to the Barn Auburn YouTube page. Tons of content. This weekend, I'm so fired up for the Super Regionals and Lindsey Crosby and Brad Law's coverage of the Super Regional. The live reaction shows after every game were spectacular. The promos leading up to the game were spectacular.
Dude, Lindsey's promo from the deck and going into the finale.
It doesn't get any better.
It was electric.
It doesn't. It was electric. It was like WWE level. It was
what it felt like. He's a wrestling guy, I think. So
that's fantastic. But definitely subscribe there, and you'll catch all our content
for sure. Hey, please like the video. Please subscribe. We'll see you next time. This has been Locked On Auburn.